Amazing. Well, thank you very much. I hope you've all had a useful time, a good lunch, had some good conversations, taken advantage of the networking opportunities. We have a good program of panels and presentations for you this afternoon. So to give you a quick preview, we're going to start with what is the future of travel eSIM. That'll be a panel discussion. Then we're then going to look at AI in action, the real-world MVNO use cases. And then finally, we have a presentation on the explosion of global eSIM roaming operators. And then we have some socializing and drinks. So it's all here to stick around for. Same rules as we said earlier, when we invite people on stage, if you can give them a big round of applause, make them feel very welcome. Once we've concluded presentations or panels, I'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. We'll run a mic around to you. Don't be shy with the questions. If you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it as well, so please ask the questions. And then when everyone's finished, again, if you can give them a big round of applause, it's always appreciated. So let's call up our next panel. The discussion is, what is the future of travel eSIM? Can I invite Isabella, Ezra and Jörg onto the stage, please? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. If maybe you could do introductions first, so tell me a little bit about where you come from, what your background is, and so on. I'll start with.
Yes. Ezra, I'm working for KPN Wholesale. Well, with a national focus, but we've seen a lot of growth last years in the travel SIM segment. So what differentiates us is that we, embrace our partners on travel SIM and see a lot of opportunities there. So yeah, we have a good collaboration with our partners, and it's my role as an account manager to help them out. So that's in short.
Very good, thank you, Isabella.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Isabella from A1 Telekom Austria Group. I have been in roaming specifically more or less 10 years. Initially I started in Brazil and then moved to Austria. And our focus here is business development and international connectivity.
Hello, my name is Jörg Henkel, working for Deutsche Telekom in the headquarters in Bonn. I'm heading the EU wholesale team, which means all wholesale activities by our European affiliates in Austria, in Poland, Czech, Slovak, Croatia, Hungary, a few further countries. So we're doing both mobile wholesale and fixed wholesale, and overseeing this from the headquarter team in Bonn, Germany.
Thank you very much. So the observant ones amongst you will have noted that we don't have any MVNOs on stage. So we were expecting Airalo, but sadly they weren't able to go. I think this is probably going to be payback from the network operators now. You know, the MVNOs had their chance to trash the network operators. It might be payback time in this session, although I'm sure these people are far too nice to be like that. So let's talk about this, and please, I mean, obviously you guys also work with MVNOs, so please also project an MVNO perspective, and then we can go to the audience for more questions. But I guess my first question is really, as already observed this morning, sometimes the relationship between host network operator and MVNO can be a tense one. You know, I've seen it described as frenemies sometimes, that, you know, you're both working at a wholesale level in a partnership, but also competing at a retail level. And of course, travel eSIM is in a particularly new growth phase, which is probably going to accelerate those challenges. Isabella, I'm going to go to you first. Just sort of talk me through your perspective of that and where you see the frictions and how you might approach that, and then I'll bring the other gents in as well.
Thank you for the question. We were even joking during lunchtime that I was going to ask who traumatized you guys, because it seems the relationship was not really good in general. From A1 perspective, we really try to build win-win partnerships. We are in 8 different markets, and when we talk to the group, we represent everyone. I think it's a very difficult point to find the exact fine-tuning on which company is better for everyone. So usually what we try to do is be as much flexible as needed, depending on what you need, what's your proposition. So I think my main advice for the MVNOs and the travel eSIMs and the community is be open, really like share with your like proposed MNO what's your real value proposition, where you want to grow, how you want to grow. Because if they're already absorbing you as MVNO, they know you get part of the pie. It's nothing that's not expected. But like if you show that there is a path that may be cutting a bigger slice of the pie from your competitor, you can grow better together. So find your niche and show you can be partners, not frenemies.
Jörg, do you have a perspective?
Yeah, maybe especially looking to the, let's say, MNO, MVNO relation in the field of travel eSIM. I think there it really depends on the kind of the partner. So they're looking at the let's say, prominent travel eSIM players that are out there. They have different approaches. If somebody comes to us and asks for being the host for, let's say, a sponsored roaming solution that they would like to use then all over the world, this is something we simply don't do, SDT. So I have to say, sorry, you need to find somebody else. If they would come and ask for, let's say, a special MVNO-like local access, because they want to, in their propositions, they might sell a pass which works in all over Europe or even all over the world, but they also have passes which work in local destinations, then it's completely fine thing to do, and we are talking to them. So it depends on the request of the partner on the one hand side, and it also depends on, let's say, what is your proposition, what is your USP, because simply coming and saying, I want to be the cheapest, I think maybe is not the convincing argument. So it's more about also what kind of add-ons do I have, what kind of user experience do I bring to the partner, to my customers, etc., for having a trustful and a good partnership.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that as KPN we made a decision, I think it was 3 years ago, because there was a lot of fear for what's happening in the travel sim market. But we saw that, well, the addition of rest of world traffic and national traffic, it was complementary to KPN itself. So we made the decision that we would emphasize it and we would be flexible there. So it started with, well, 2 partners, I think. But now we see, yeah, well, the growth is coming, and what you already stated is it's really important to be open, transparent, and work in a partnership, because we want to know where our partners are heading to, and we only can have the right solutions and the right pace if we are open to that. And work together as a partnership, so they know within KPN Wholesale, well, they're safe for the information that they're sharing with us, and the way we collaborate. So, if there are difficulties, we will solve them. And I don't recognize, well, the relationship as a frenemy. It's really a partnership, and that's the way we work together. So sometimes, if that doesn't work out and partners are not transparent, that would mean that we would end the relationship. So it's really one of our key values to work like that.
Brilliant, thank you. So I guess the point of conflict, or the perceived point of conflict, possibly, is the whole idea that the travel eSIM is removing roaming revenues from the customers that you might already have. I'm interested in your perspectives on whether or not, Isabella mentioned the size of the pie. Is that pie bigger because the travel eSIM addresses silent roamers, or do you see it as a purely erosive proposition?
Yeah, if we look from KPN, what we see is that for the EU market and so on our retail brand, then we see, okay, the most might be that there are some cannibalism on that, but we have seen the most growth for the rest of world destinations due to our partnerships with TravelSim, and it's in our benefit because we have a lot of traffic volumes. We get better rates, which helps our as KPN and Insolved.
Isabella, do you have a different perspective?
No, actually, one also, I would say, support in the sense the idea that it's addressing part of the market that was not addressed by us, not because we didn't want to, but because, well, as people say, not even Jesus pleased everyone. So even if we do a great proposition, nobody, 100% of our customers will take it. So we believe that the MVNOs will address a niche. We believe that the travel eSIM proposition will address a niche, and some of them sadly are not going to do a good work, and then this will show part of the customers that if the retail, because this is also our homework, if the retail has a good proposition, you should go back to your original MVNO roaming offer, because then you have, like, in a sense, full support that you maybe did not get with the other vendor. So in a sense, can be full circle and can be complementary. The pie, if the pie is bigger, is good for everyone.
From my point of view, the cannibalization effect for the MNOs is limited, to be honest, because I think most of the customers who go for a travel eSIM solution from an MVNO have not been customers that had really wanted to use the normal roaming from their operators. So that means from the wholesale side, we are not losing really inbound, because these customers would not have come as inbounders, as normal inbounders into our networks. And from the retail side, they may have not used our retail tariffs because, let's face it, they were maybe too bad and not attractive enough. And yeah, so therefore I think the direct impact is limited, but nevertheless, I completely agree. At least on the retail side, you need to be more attractive for your own customers in order and serve them with good retail propositions in order not to lose them to any travel eSIM offers. And on the inbound side, I think that's something which we can only influence to a certain degree, because it depends on the retail tariff of the operators which send normally their customers into our networks. And if they don't have attractive propositions, then they might look for alternatives. So therefore, this is a limited impact than we as a visited operator then has.
Yeah, what I think what also is important is that the travel SIM market in itself is a different market. So you see all these MNOs who are starting by itself with travel SIM propositions, but they are mainly driven by some lower prices. But the travel SIM market is not only about pricing, that was the start, but it's more important how your customer journey is, your flexibility is, and you even see some loyalty to the travel SIM brands which are developing. And yeah, we also try to step in the travel SIM market, but yeah, it's you need to be focused, and you have to need to have a real strategy on that, and that's what's lacking at the moment, and what I see in MNOs who are trying to be involved or part of the travel SIM market.
Yeah, it's an interesting point actually, and one I wanted to discuss a bit more. You know, this is no longer just an MVNO proposition, right? We're seeing, I think Vodafone have launched, I think Do have launched, and various other people as well. I'm interested in your perspectives, not necessarily about your brands, but just as industry commentators, on what's driving that. Because if I was a consumer, I might feel slightly affronted. I'm a Vodafone customer, by the way. I might feel slightly affronted that now I can buy cheaper roaming through Vodafone's travel eSIM, yet for the last 20 years, I paid quite expensive roaming. And I might feel like maybe I'd rather buy it from somebody else other than Vodafone. So I'm interested in your perspectives, you know, on that.
Yeah, I would say, I think if you want to engage yourself in the travel eSIM business as an operator, you need to do both. You need to have an attractive travel eSIM, let's say, offer, which mainly also is directed to not yet your customers, maybe customers coming into Europe, for example, from other regions, other operators, and then become your retail customer by taking your travel eSIM offer. But at the same time, in order not to offend your own existing customers, I would say you need to also give them attractive propositions in order not to lose them to either competitors' offers or to just shift them from your normal retail plan to a special eSIM travel offer. So if you engage, I think you would need to do both for your existing customer base and a travel eSIM offer, which is mainly, I would say, directed to new customers. not yet existing ones.
Yes, well, we also, yeah, you already said it might be fronted, but what we think the time of huge margins for the MNOs is over, and Travel Sim, well, was an initiative which helped by that. But what we also saw is that, well, the MNOs are thinking, okay, well, this is my turnover, and I do nothing because, well, it's good and there's no alternative. And I think from more general perspective, it is just a good case that people are using more roaming because the price is good and they don't have to bill shock. So we see an increase of volumes by that because you want to align not totally on pricing, but you need to do something as an MNO with your pricing. But it helps in that case, and we just see a positive effect from that.
I think you touched an important point on bill shock, because one thing that is lacking, and I think it's how we engage, because I also do agree that you need to, if you enter it, you need to do as we discussed all morning with a proper branding value, a proper proposition, but also the missing point and the link, I believe, is education, because a lot of the customers maybe feel offended, but if you communicate it properly, if you educate, you may avoid bill shock, you may create loyalty. So it's really, again, customer experience, how you approach your business, how you approach your partnership with your MVNO, where you're targeting. We had a similar panel a couple of weeks ago in Alicante, and everybody, Peter was also there, and he said, we cannot just go and ask for pricing. And everyone agreed that find your niche. Will never be 100% cheaper in all of the 194 countries in the world. Find your niche, build from there, build loyalty, and then you get somewhere. I think the Latin companies will always be better in Latin prices than European countries, no matter how many volumes we do have, because they have much more people there. So you need to create something that makes sense to your demographic.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't that affronted, to be fair. I think there's another really interesting dimension on this, because I would say that travel eSIM is still very much in its gold rush. There's people are finding their way, let's put it like that, you know, and we've started to see some interventions from regulators in terms of trying to regulate usage of travel eSIM where non-travellers are using it locally and so on. I think Turkey is the most notable example, but there's plenty of other places as well. I'm quite interested in your perspectives on that in relation to how you partner, but also if you see it as a significant risk.
I think it's important. Regulation is never easy, but necessary. Turkey is an example, India is an example, Brazil is moving into that direction. QAC is key. Whoever is entering this business should be aware of that, and not because only regulation and taxes. If we think about this, it's roaming. It's connectivity to people when they're outside of their home. It means maybe a place they are not familiar with a language that they're not familiar with. Ultimately, this can be their only connection to their embassies. So we need to be responsible for people, not only in the telco side, but in the human side. So yes, we should be aware and responsible for this.
Yeah, well, what I think it's, well, yeah, we see this initiative, and somewhere I understand the thought because you want to know who your customers. That's good, but it's also a way of protecting your own market. And I think if you look and you want to survive as a travel sim party, you need to be aligned on regulations and try to fulfill or have at least conversations about the know your customer rules and regulatory. But that's, well, it's very logical that would happen. We're starting right now, I think, a few years with this travel sim market, and yeah, you always will see. We also see it in machine to machine. You will get some protective measures, and if you, like I said, if you want to succeed as a travel sim partner, you need to embrace it and see how we can solve it. But if else, it won't help, and it will stop for you as a travel sim partner.
For me, it's a gray zone that some players in the eSIM travel market are behaving. Let's put it like this, because there are clear regulations that we as MNOs have to follow, and we follow them. Looking at know your customer registration obligations that we have for prepaid customers in most of the European countries, paying taxes, and I think that has been also raised by some guys from the MVNO travel scene. Looking at these players, I'm not sure, or I know that they are not all comply with the regulations that are out there. So there are some partners or some players who are doing a know your customer process, some others don't, and I would be interested to see how some, let's say, companies pay taxes if they are based in, I don't know, Dubai, having customers from India using services in France. So especially looking to value-added tax, I'm not sure how this works everywhere. So for me, there's at least a gray zone with some of the players, and sooner or later this may also cause some troubles with regulators if they look into it a bit deeper. Yeah,
and I think it's a constant failing, I think, now that laws find it very difficult to keep up with technology. You see it in every circle of life. So I think probably we will see it tightening up. I want to address or ask a question about something that Ezra mentioned, and then I'll be really interested in your perspectives on the future of travel eSIM, so where it's going to go. But you mentioned about customer loyalty, and I think that's really interesting because Airalo has done a very good job in building a brand, a trusted brand, and getting customers to buy into it. And I think probably they've helped define the travel eSIM category as well. I'm interested in whether or not you think there are other players which are almost disposable insofar as, I get a travel eSIM, I dump my travel eSIM, I get a new one from a different provider. So kind of interested in that. How important is the loyalty? And that probably plays into our conversations about what the future looks like as well. So maybe if you could give some commentary on that.
Yes. Well, I think it's really is important because, like I said, if you are a customer and you know that overall you get good rates and you have a good user experience, why would you step to another travel sim party? So we have regular conversations with all kinds of students or children, no, not children, but the youngsters. Okay, which travel sim brand do you use and why do you? Well, mostly say because, well, this one is sexy. But we also say, okay, this one is getting too expensive, and then they will step up. But I think, well, there are so many players coming out right now in the market, and if you want to differentiate, you need to give more than only the lowest prices. It's the overall experience. It's building the brand, good service, good quality. That's also what we find important. Is that, well, we also see it in the demand. Because when we started, it only was because I want the cheapest network in that country. Can you help me out? Okay, well, then we provided them. And a few months later, we have some lack of coverage there. So can you add another network? And what you see is that there are now mostly 2 or 3 operators needed. So they started as, well, this is the cheapest, but they also see that it gives a lot of trouble because they got a lot of issues. And once there is an issue and the customer decides to use another eSIM, they're gone. So that's the way it works.
I think you always have some, let's say, optimizer, maybe digital natives who are really only looking for the cheapest price. And so these customers will always churn once they find a cheaper offer. But I would say the majority of the customers, once they are satisfied with the user experience and everything is installed, I think they're just for saving a little amount of money, I think they would not do the hassle of searching for a new offer, installing a new eSIM, etc. So I would say it's important that you have a good user experience and satisfy your customer. Once you get it, then there's a big likelihood that he stays with you for quite some time, and don't upset him because then he's gone.
Very good. So let's talk about the future. We've talked about the fact that it's a rapidly growing market. I think Dario mentioned that this morning. All the indicators are that it's growing and you were getting greater and greater adoption. Is that sustainable? What's going to happen in the future, do you think, to the many different travel eSIM providers?
I think we're already seeing some level of consolidation because we have the very tiny, we have the aggregators, we have the MNO propositions, we have different flavors. And we already see that some of the biggest, like Airalo, Peter would say this if he were here, he is already applying for license to become MVNO. So I think he even got it already. So there is this movement that once you become big enough, naturally, as our colleague said, you need to comply with regulation, you need to find the correct partner, you need to do a lot of things. I won't say you become an MNO, maybe you become so big that you be slightly smaller, but still MNO or MVNO. But I don't think we will see, as I said, we're in the gold rush phase. We will see consolidation, and with all this regulation and adaptation, as our colleague from KPN said, the M2M market passed this phase, and I think now we're going into the travel side and the roaming of business, but there will be consolidation, regulation, then the market will settle at some point, and things will be business as usual in a sense.
Yes, I totally agree. But what we also see is that, well, in different sectors which are not known by Telekom, like the financial institutions and so on, are all trying to do something with travel sim, and I think in the end they will stop with that, because we have then you have so many options to get travel sim, and then your experience and the brand counts, and not the availability of those travel sim propositions.
I think the window for travel eSIM is the time window is limited in time. So because more and more operators will change their retail plans, make roaming for retail roaming for their customers attractive, more and more attractive. In Europe, I think with Roam Like at Home, we anyhow have no issue anymore. It's more about like traveling from outside EU to EU and vice versa. And I think once you have a good proposition by your operator, you have no incentive to search for any alternative offer. So eSIM is about to stay. Travel eSIM, I think, is just a proposition which exists as long as operators are charging too high prices and incentivize their customers to look for an alternative, which I think will be an end of a story in a couple of years.
Well, I think something different, because these travel sim parts are rapidly growing and have a global coverage and become local active. It is another other game than sometimes if you have your own countries and your own networks, then it works. But I think from a global perspective, well, a few will survive and become part of the total telecom market.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Well, the time has come to see if the audience have any questions for you. So if you have got a question for our panel, if you can raise your hand, we'll get a microphone over to you. Time to settle some scores between MVNOs and network operators. Oh, look, you're all so polite. Come on, let's have a fight. It's much more fun. No, everyone is being very, very polite. It must be because you're such lovely people and you've done a good, balanced job of presenting the facts as you see them. So if there are no questions, please say thank you for your panel in the usual way. Thank you very much.